David Tulis ready to put the eagle in the pot and rescue the turkey, hoping to undo the wording on the back of the Federal Reserve note with the one on it, the $1 bill, as we conveniently call it. And it says there, e pluribus unum. And I argue for a reversal and putting the eagle in the pot. Of course, an eagle in the pot wouldn't taste very good. It's probably very tough. The turkey is a very full and handsome bird, great for eating. And I'm glad you have enjoyed your fill of it and will be enjoying your fill in the way of leftovers for the next few days. A great blessing to have so much meat on a single bird. So little military vigor. Also, we need to just be glad about that. And the eagle is, of course, the imperial bird used by the Roman legions, used by the Wehrmacht in their attempt to persuade Europe to become subject people, and of course by the Yankees in Washington under the rubric e pluribus unum from many one. I suggest overturning that here on the David Tulis Show at 92.7 FM, and also most notably, most powerfully on 95.3 HD4 HD digital. That is to say, powerful, far-reaching, 60-mile radius digital radio. And I argue in Latin, yes, in Latin, for ex uno plura, which means from one, many, from the great centralized colossus in Washington and New York, and in the futures markets in Chicago, many. And that would be many local economies, many new countries, many new states, and new arrangements in the marketplace, marketplaces tend to be decentralized. They tend to abhor centralized systems, which usually maintain their competitiveness and their threat enforced by law, right? They do it by lines of type in large volumes, blue or green. Tennessee Code annotated as green if you buy the hard copy, and always with serifs on the letters. That would be for, the serif is the little bit on the letter, which is the shoe. On the A, for example, the two little shoes are serifs. I call those not shoes, but blades. And blades are what governments issue in their type, words that cut. And so I'm for Helvetica type in all things. The neutral Swiss type, no threat, no force, no compulsion, no compunction. It's all voluntary. The voluntary free market society, and people like Debbie Dooley really like the free market concept. She is the president of Conservatives for Energy Freedom, which is a 501c4 charity with a political angle, a political argument. And in her conception of ending the monopoly of TVA and other government subsidized, government allied corporations, she sees a new realm in the energy sector, as we heard about just recently here on the David Tulis Show, a new decentralized marketplace in energy. Debbie, tell my listener what decentralization in energy brings, and what is preventing right now, what is inhibiting a cheaper, freer alternative to our centralized systems. What do we have now? And where do you propose at Conservatives for Energy Freedom to go?
Well, one of the things have to keep in mind is that true conservatives champion free market choice, not government-created monopolies. And at one point, these electric monopolies were very important, and they were needed to have electricity to some of the rural areas, to serve some of these rural areas. But their structure has really changed. I mean, the technology innovation, it's changed. We have such a centralized structure that we're at risk for, a terrorist attack. A few years ago, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission issued a report that found that we have, for example, around 54,000 substations in the United States in different regions that connect the regions that serve electricity from coast to coast. If terrorists were able to determine the 9 key substations and take them down, it would cause a disaster, like a domino effect from coast to coast, that would be extremely difficult us. It would disrupt our economy. That's why it's important we encourage a move to a more decentralized structure. And monopolies stand in the way. And also, for me, it's private property rights. I believe there should be choice in energy. I believe that on your private property, if you want to negotiate a contract with a third party to buy electricity from them, like electricity produced from solar panels, you should have the right to do that. I believe if you have solar panels on your rooftop and it's generating excess electricity, you should have the right to enter into a private contract and sell the excess energy to your neighbors. The monopolies are standing in the way. And make no mistake, TVA is a federally mandated monopoly that was created on May 18th in 1933. It is a monopoly. And there has been a lot of issues over the years with the mismanagement of TVA and the fact that they're in debt. But, I believe that if in energy choice and having choice in energy. Just like in a town, this is Thanksgiving weekend, it's Black Friday. Today is Black Friday and people are out at the shopping malls. They have a choice about where they want to purchase their goods from, and there's competition for them from these different stores, and it's better for the consumer.
We're talking with Debbie Dooley of Conservatives for Energy Freedom. Well, it's interesting that we have this cartel here in Tennessee, Debbie, and I know it came in 1933, as you say, in the economic crisis that Franklin Delano Roosevelt was managing, and through which he was expanding exponentially the power of the central government. In Tennessee, we have Section 22 in the Bill of Rights. It's in the first main section. In the Article 1 Bill of Rights, and that is a prohibition against monopolies. And that's Section 22. It says that perpetuities and monopolies are contrary to the genius of a free state and shall not be allowed. So how is it, explain to my listener how a monopoly such as TV, which is here in our state, is contrary to the genius of a free state? What is a free state? What is the idea of genius, and how, in your argument, would an overturning of this monopoly bring that about and bring that genius to fruition?
Well, I can tell you it would, now the electric power customers are essentially shackled to these monopolies. These monopolies, and TVA is the worst, and I have a history of fighting monopolies nationwide. TVA is the worst because they make their decisions behind closed doors. It's secret, it's transparent, behind closed doors. And they try to claim that they're not a monopoly, but they are a monopoly. There was an act after it was created. There was legislation that actually amended this. In 1992, the Federal Power Act added an anti-cherry picking provision that was meant to protect TVA. That said, okay, they had these transmission lines, by the way, that customers paid for, and TVA doesn't have to lease their transmission lines to other companies wanting to compete with them. That's wrong. That's a federal government protecting this monopoly. TVA has something that are called all requirements contracts. And there are 100, I believe there's approximately 154 electric power companies within the TVA service area. In your area, in Chattanooga, it's the Electric Power Board is one of, EPB is one such of these of these electric companies. TVA forces them to sign a contract with them. It's all requirements, 100% all requirements, that tells these local power companies, you have to purchase all of your electricity from us. You can't go out and purchase it from a solar company or any other provider if you're going to receive any of your electricity from us. That's a monopoly.
Well,
that stands in the way. This is monopolies. If many of you have seen read George Orwell's 1984, Big Brother, that's the way these electric monopolies function. They go out. They actually have and TVA is nonprofit, so-called, but I mean the money is being used for perpetuation of the good old boy system. So they want to protect it. They are anti-free market, and they are not servicing their their customers well. I mean, it's well known that TVA has $26 billion and unfunded pensions and long-term debt. $26 billion TVA has. And so they often, a monopoly is the only type of business that can actually make a big, disastrous decision and yet force their customers to bail them out. And I think it's time we stop this.
Well, let me ask you a question, Debbie.
We can push for choice in energy. Everybody deserves to have choice. We don't deserve to have Big Brother breathing down our necks, telling us the power you produce on your private property belongs to me, and I will tell you what you can and can't do on your private property.
Okay, well, let me ask you, Debbie Dooley, what is the argument that could be made by somebody who has standing against these provisions that give TVA the power to demand all requirements, contracts, as you say, from distributors such as EPB? Is there any point in the law that could be used to challenge that? And that's question A. And question B: who would have standing to challenge that requirement? I mean, it seems to me that EPB, for example, would not want to sue over that because, I mean, I don't know. It seems like the question is in the end standing. Who has standing to sue? Can you what do you know about that?
I think what we're going to try to do, and we launched a coalition. It's a bipartisan coalition, a groups of people on the left and right. It's called, that we actually launched this coalition, and it's Tennesseans for Solar Choice. And we have my group. There's a Tea Party activists in Memphis that are going to be part of it. The NAACP are part of it. The Tennessee Small Business Alliance are also members of this coalition. And, the Southern Alliance for Clean Energy, the Tennessee Solar Energy Industries Association are a part of it. And we're going to ask people, the grassroots, the listeners, liberty-minded folks, to contact, with TVA. Let's generate some phone calls at some point to TVA. I have a website. It's called energyfreedomusa.org. And at that website, you can sign up, or you can go and look for the latest on TVA, and you can sign up for our mailing list. We're going to be asking people to make phone calls. We need to have TVA to change this policy. The only way this is going to happen is for people to stand up, make phone calls, challenge TVA, and call for TVA to change it to allow energy freedom and energy choice. I did a video that challenged, I spoke at their recent board meeting, and, talks about energy freedom and energy choice. And their chairman, Mr. Johnson, issued a statement after saying, hey, we're not a monopoly, which is ridiculous. But clearly, me speaking out at that meeting clearly disturbed them. When you start talking about choice and freedom and liberty, power companies, especially monopolies, don't want to hear that.
Well, Debbie, let me just mention Debbie Dooley is she's a longtime conservative, and she is one of the co-founders of the National Tea Party movement.
get people to, contact, especially their congressmen and senators, and asking them to put pressure on TVA. That would be really good. TVA actually services 7 different states, and even in Georgia, part of northern Georgia is serviced by TVA. You have Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Kentucky, Georgia, North Carolina, and Virginia. But the biggest service area of TVA is actually in, Tennessee. And I mean, this is something that's important. Get out there. Let's start talking about energy choice and energy freedom. If you have a group that wants to join this coalition, email me, Debbie at energyfreedomusa.org. And I can promise you, this is a battle we can win, and we need to win, and we need to end this federally sanctioned monopoly.
Well, this is David Tulis, and we're talking with Debbie Dooley. She is the president of Conservatives for Energy Freedom, which is a 501c4 organization. She was one of the 22 co-founders in 2009 of the National Tea Party movement. And so when she spoke to the TVA board, her words got the attention of its members, who are, of course, operators of a federally chartered cartel that used to have taxpayer subsidies directly. But that subsidy period has long been passed, and it operates as a market player. And it keeps it makes an argument for centralization in energy. So, in a nutshell, Debbie, tell my listener, we have just a minute. Tell my listener why decentralization is important, why it's coming. What does decentralization in energy mean? What's making it possible? How technically is it coming about?
Well, one of the easiest ways to generate your own power is solar panels. Generate your own power using solar panels on your rooftop. You can generate your own power doing that. We encourage innovation. And this is why decentralization is very, very, very liberty-minded. You can generate your own electricity. You're in charge of your electricity that you generate on your private property. That's the way it should be. To move to a decentralized power structure, eventually innovation will take place and you can move completely off the grid. And one of the things that I will point to, if many of your listeners, which I'm going to age myself, but I can tell you, I can remember the time we did not have cell phones. We had one central system. It was the Bell system. It's AT&T now, but at that time it was, they call it Ma Bell system. And after the monopoly was broken up, all of a sudden there was competition. Innovation took place. And that is the only reason at that time when the system was broken up, and I believe it was 1984, only the rich people had cell phones, had mobile phones, and you had a big bag you carried it around with. Nobody could afford, except millionaires could afford these mobile phones. Look what happened when the centralized system was broken up. Innovation, competition in the marketplace. The same thing needs to happen in energy. Had it not been for the freedom and liberty that this Bell system, this judge's decision in 1984, we would not be carrying around these cell phones that we have now that are mobile computers.
The website
time for these monopolies to go away. They need to allow freedom and choice and move into a decentralized structure, national security reasons, and also for liberty.
We're talking with Debbie Dooley. She is the president of Conservatives for Energy Freedom, and her website, the website is energyfreedom.usa. That's energyfreedomusa.org, and find out more about her. You can email her at debbie@energyfreedomusa.org. And she's right. There's what we have in the founding of the country, in our established centralized system. The idea of a great head out of Washington was e pluribus unum. I'm arguing for, and she effectively is arguing for a reversal rather than from many one. We rather have from one many. That is the argument of local economy. That really is the argument of the free market here in Chattanooga. And I argue, David Tulis argued for loving your neighbor and buying local economy in the free markets in Chattanooga and beyond. And that means Nooganomics, right? What we're arguing for is Nooganomics. And get this, there's a website that's all about that very concept, and that's Nooganomics.com, our chief sponsor. That's Nooganomics.com. Debbie Dooley, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, and I look forward to being with you again. You guys are great.
We want to talk to you again. That's Debbie Dooley. She's the president of Conservatives for Energy Freedom. Hey, a new area for liberty. Think about it. We're not just traffic and transportation, which is a subject in which I've been looking, but energy. This is a whole new area of conflict, a whole new area of self-assertion for people like you, my listener here at Nooga Radio. Thanks.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4 and 92.7 FM.
3, 2, 1.
Chattanooga Radio. Digital FM 95.3 HD4.